Welcome to Council, Monday, June 27th, Monday, May 27th. I'm reading off the top of the agenda. May 27th, 2019. Call the meeting to order at 7 p.m. As always, we do our opening with a municipal safety share, and this evening Councillor Hatton is going to give us a safety share on Toolbox Talks with Safety Toolbox. Fan safety.
As the summer season comes upon us, let's take a look at fans and fan safety. Fans help move the air around and help us keep us cool. However, there are some important safety tips we need to look at as the summer approaches. Today, as you're around your machine, take a look at each of the fans located. Is the guard in place? Fans that are less than 7 feet off the ground must have a guard on them to prevent injury. The opening needs to be half an inch or less. Take a look at your fans. Ensure the guards are in place and secure. Several years ago, we had an injury where an employee jumped up to adjust the fan and the guard came loose and they hit the blades. Is the fan clean? Fan blades that are clean and free of dust and dirt actually move more air than a dirty blade and will keep you cooler. Take a moment to blow out your fans today and get as much of the dust and dirt off the blades and the guarding as possible. Is the plug in good condition? Check the plug and cord and make sure all the electrical prongs are in place and the cord isn't frayed. Make sure the motor cover is in place and is secure. If you find a problem with the fan in your area, write a work order or see your supervisor. Let's get these taken care of early in the season rather than waiting until it gets extremely hot.
Great, thanks for that report. Okay, any additions? We have the motion here to approve the minutes, any additions or deletions to the agenda this evening. So we have a council update. I'll give a verbal update on the Caribou situation. We also have an addition on item 11, which will be Councillor Zingrao with the Library Board. Anything else?
And a deletion.
Yeah, deletion of Councillor Tabushi on the Museum Board on item A under Report 11. Okay. So with that, I do have a motion that Council hereby accepts the agenda for Monday, May 27, 2019, regular meeting of Council, as circular amended. Moved by Councillor Valens, second by Councillor Lake. Any questions? Hearing none. Call the question. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Any disclosure of interest? Hearing none. We have the minutes of the previous meeting of Council to be Council hereby adopts the minutes of the regular meeting of Council held on Monday, May 13, 2019, as well as the closed meeting of Council held on Monday, May 13, 2019, as circular amended. Moved by Councillor Lake, second by Councillor Debussy. Any questions, errors, omissions of those minutes? Hearing none, call question. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Right down to council reports. I attended a conference call on Friday. There's been talk about 2 weeks ago. We had a great meeting in Nipigon, Ontario, to discuss the caribou situation that's happening within northwestern Ontario, specifically the corridor along Lake Superior, as well as the Nipigon and the kind of Beardmore, Greenstone area for the forestry corporations, as well as the forest itself. So out of that meeting came Friday discussion around what are the next steps. So the next steps we're anticipating going through with is there's a meeting in Thunder Bay on May 29th in regards to the moose habitat and moose scenarios. So that was a meeting that we did not know about until Friday morning. And so we're going to attend that in Thunder Bay at the Valhalla on May 29th at 4 p.m. Prior to that, we're going to look at having a meeting in Lake Helen First Nations community to discuss what the next steps was, and we believe there's going to be an information session that's going to take place that day. I don't have all the particulars right now, but this is a situation that we're going to try to get out. I think through CFNO there's been some discussion with the mayors and chiefs within the region. There's some major issues that the government is going through between the federal and provincial governments to close off a lot of our roadways, our logging roads, our secondary roads within the forest. Not only it's going to affect forests, as we know, we talked to the Nawingo Gokima as well as the Lake Nipigon Forest Management Corporation to discuss what the impacts are. They're going to be great. Also, the impact to all of us as residents and just people want to enjoy the forest with the closure of all these roads to protect the potential caribou habitat that we all know, and we believe that there's not going to be an impact with any of these road closures to the caribou, most of the caribou on the Slate or the Mishpecotton Islands. So with that being said, the chiefs and the mayors within the region from Manitouwadge right through to Thunder Bay have been meeting and discussing and what we're going to do to bring this to the attention to the government of Ontario and Canada in regards to the species at risk and endangered species. Let's give you a quick overview. In 2002, the government of Canada, through Committee of Status on Endangered and Wildlife Species, identified that the woodlands caribou was designated and as threatened, not as species at risk, just threatened. In 2011, the Environment of Canada report noted that there was over 34,000 boreal caribou in 51 ranges in Canada. So at that rate, I don't see what the problem is, but for whatever reason the government does, there is a problem, they believe, and as well as in 2018, the woodland caribou have adapted to the different ecosystem and specifically not in our area. It's identified that, other than those two areas identified. So we're wondering why they're trying to close off all these roadways, secondary roads. So if there's something you hear on the media over the next day and a half, please be aware that we're going to try to have an information session to bring some attention through the media to the government of Ontario as well as Canada. So just a quick update on that. Okay.
Your Worship,
Sorry, yeah.
just before we carry on, you missed the motion under number 4 for the closed meeting minutes on May the 13th.
Yeah, okay, I
Thank
did
you.
too, thank you. Sorry about that. Trying to get ahead of myself. Council hereby accepts the attached report of recommendation on the infrastructure technology updates. No. That was it was incorporated in the other motion, I believe. Yeah,
Okay, thank you.
yeah, it was, sorry, it was combined into two of them. Thanks. Student council reports, Councillor Hatton.
Okay, so Marathon High School is planning our 5th annual powwow this year, which will be held on this Friday, May 31st, and the grand entry will be starting at 2 o'clock, and it will be, 12 o'clock, and it will be closing at 3 o'clock. And there will be a feast for everyone to follow after the powwow. We also have a Turning Tables presentation, or a movie showing at the Gingras Girls Odeum Theatre on Thursday at 5 p.m. So this is a free event and it's open to the public. So there will be a film, a Q&A, and a demonstration. So you might see the posters around town and on Facebook. We also have our logo for this year, which is once again created by Colleen, and I believe Denise Chisholm helped as well. And our logo really says a lot about our powwow. So I'll just go over a few things. So our powwow is, our theme is Menu Gaji e Tadezawin. So that means positive change. So our elders came into our class and they spoke about how the beaver is always making his beaver lodges for his young and trying to keep that positive going through the generations. So we wanted to take their teachings and incorporate it into our powwow. I believe that is it. And I also have some brochures here for all of the counselors, and Marathon High School would like to invite you all to our 5th annual powwow.
Good. Thank you very much. Councillor Stone?
The boys and girls soccer team both won their tournaments, winning the NSSSAA banner. The boys will play for the NWASA banner on Thursday and Friday. And the girls soccer team, they'll be going to Kenora to play for the NWASA banner on Thursday and Friday as well. This is the last week to get prom tickets for $10. After May 31st, they will be going up to $15. So make sure you get them now.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Stone. Prior to getting into our next part of our meeting, we're going to have a little presentation to our student councillors. So I can ask them to come down to the middle. And council as well, if they'd like. So get Mitchell and Michael in the middle here. We'll get a quick picture. So come on, squeeze in. So So on behalf of our council, as always, we'd like to take the opportunity to thank you for coming in and spending the year with us. It's always a pleasure having the input from student councillors to bring to the table, as well as I hope you learned something from us over the last year. And we would encourage you, Councillor Hatton, to come back next year. I know Councillor Stone, I think you're done and you're off to the university or college, so
Yeah.
good luck with that. But on our appreciation for you coming and spending time with us and giving us your input, we'd like to give you a little gift of our appreciation on your parting. So just a little picture of some of the stuff that Luba 7 has done. So thank you very much. Great, thanks guys, appreciate it. And I'll give you both a second to give you a little seat.
I did too, I have no idea it was the last one.
So as always, we'll give the student council an opportunity to say any parting words if they'd like, because it is their last meeting, and we might not see them again at this table. So, Councillor Stone, if you'd like to give a few little comments.
So yeah, thanks for having me as a student councillor for the past 3 years. I felt like I've learned a lot with about our municipal government and just about our town in general. It certainly got me interested in more municipal government and policies, just seeing that it's good to see things get done at a smaller level and seeing it get done around our community. So hopefully I will be taking this knowledge and what I've learned from doing all this further on when I go off to Lake Hud in next September for computer science.
Good.
So
Thank
thanks.
you. Councillor Hatton?
Yeah, thank you for having me on the municipal council. I learned a lot over the last year, and I will definitely try and be back next year. I really enjoyed it, and I hope I will be able to bring my knowledge forth with my years upcoming, and it runs in my family, so I'm sure I'll be around somewhere.
Good. Well, thank you both for coming. Thank both of you for coming to council and bringing that view from the student councillors world to us. We appreciate that, and definitely congratulations on your being with us for the last 3 years, Councillor Stone, and good luck in your future endeavours. And as again you said, Councillor Hatton, we hope to see you back in the fall of 2019 for another year, if that'd be great. So thanks again. Okay. Report on the infrastructure technology updates. Darryl.
So the town's infrastructure technology, IT, is identified as critical infrastructure. It is absolutely essential to the efficient and effective administration and governance of the municipality. It is the vital backbone of municipal operations. In August 2018, the town's IT system suffered a critical breakdown that resulted in lost and unrecoverable data and created tremendous disruption in municipal services for approximately 3 weeks. As a result of this incident, in December 2018, administration contracted IT Solutions Canada to undertake and complete an audit of the municipality's IT infrastructure. The audit identified a number of deficiencies, namely the need for a mail server upgrade, the need for a backup infrastructure upgrade, the need for increased storage capacity, regular system updating, and with the recommendation to rebuild the municipal IT system from the ground up. Based on the results of the audit and the need to upgrade the municipality's infrastructure, in April 2019, administration issued a request for proposals through invitation. Proposals were received from Northern Computers and Communications, JTech Solutions, and MicroAge. All 3 proposals were reviewed by administration, comparing them against our completed audit from December of 18. Northern Computers submitted a strong proposal which best met the municipality's needs going forward. The proposal includes 3 new servers, which will provide redundancy, proper backups, recovery testing, and disaster recovery, cartridge backup as opposed to our current tape backup, which is outdated technology, backup of all data to an off-site cloud for quick recovery, managed services, which include improved antivirus, more regular system updating, better malware, and an ability to audit the health of the system regularly and in real time, weekly updates, monthly reporting and analytics, an increase in cybersecurity, and the location of a technician here in Marathon. The financial implications, $25,000 was budgeted in 2019 for server upgrades. The Northern Computer proposal of $74,800 breaks down as follows. $65,300 for one-time project fees, which includes equipment replacement, as well as the labor to implement that equipment. $9,492 for monthly services, which includes cloud backup and managed services, and HST is additional. On March 20th, 2019, the municipality was notified by the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing that it would be receiving $485,000 in one-time funding. This funding is intended to help modernize municipal service delivery and reduce future costs. Administration is recommending that $49,800 of this funding be utilized to offset the difference between the 2019 budget amount and the project proposal, as an up-to-date municipal IT system is critical to optimal service delivery. Your options are A, to proceed with the infrastructure technology upgrade project as presented and enter into a contract with Northern Computers, or B, do not proceed with the project at this time. Your administration recommends selecting option A and that the mayor and clerk be authorized to enter into a contract with Northern Computers. Thank you.
Thank you for the report. Do you have a motion here? Council hereby accepts the attached report and recommendation on infrastructure technology upgrades, and further that the mayor and clerk be authorized to enter a contract with Northern Computers and Communications for the infrastructure technology upgrade project. Moved by Councilor Lake, seconded by Councilor Debuchy. Questions? Councilor Debuchy.
I just wanted to ensure that the request proposals and the criteria that administration used to select Northern Computers was transparent and it followed our procedure or acquisition procedures.
I did. Follow the bylaw.
Councilor Lake.
Yeah, I think it's a really good idea, obviously. The one thing that concerns me a little bit is it's now an outsourced thing, and I get that lots of this stuff has to be outsourced. Is there any training in the budget for anybody within the municipality to hold a little bit of knowledge around managing this beast?
So our system's always been outsourced. So currently it's actually outsourced to Microwage in Thunder Bay. So our servers are on site, but our service contract is with Microwage out of Thunder Bay. So Miss Lees is our IT individual who looks after the system on a daily basis. So certainly she'll be working hand in hand with Northern Computers. I think the one thing that we really like with the Northern Computers proposal, and we've also had discussions with NOSH, as they're in a contract with Northern as well, is they do have a full-time technician located in Marathon that will respond immediately to when we have an issue, as opposed to having to bring somebody in from Thunder Bay, which, to be completely honest, always hasn't been that timely, and it's caused a lot of issues for us.
Okay, good. Anything else? With that being said, I'll call a question. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Okay, up next we have a report on the road salt and sand usage for the previous year. Good evening, Mr. Scott.
Good evening, Your Worship, members of council. Presenting the road salt and sand usage report. In August 2000, Environment Canada concluded a 5-year scientific assessment on road salt, or sodium chloride. Environment Canada concluded that sufficient concentration of road salt poses risk to plants, animals, water bodies, and groundwater. Although Environment Canada views salt as a Canadian Environmental Protection Act toxic, they have not banned the use of salt, but instead encourage municipalities to adopt best practices for road salt management under the Transportation Association of Canada. The main objective of the Works and Operations Best Management Practices is the reduction of the negative impacts of road salts by delivering the right amount of road salt in the right place at the right time. Staff of the Works and Operations Department have attended several courses that highlight best techniques and procedures on this subject. The municipality sander has the ability to track our salt and sand salt application accurately through electronics. The salt data gathered is highlighted on the attached winter grip control product usage chart. A few key points of the data include: the municipality applied 199.5 ton of salt to roadways over 37 events from November 23, 2018 to April 12, 2019. We purchased 326 ton, which equates to a 26% decrease over the previous season in purchased salt product during the 2018-19 season. We currently have 45 to 50 ton of salt remaining in inventory, which will be mixed with sand and used in the next season. The municipality applied 495 ton of sand to roadways over 46 events from November 20 of 18 to April 12 of 19. We purchased 897 ton, which equates to a 2% decrease over the previous season in purchased sand product during the 18-19 season. However, we have approximately 500 ton left in the dome for next season when we'll net additional savings. The sand dome will hold 1,500 ton when fully stocked. Inventory of sand salt mix was not exhausted in the past season due to less application days below 15 degrees. The remaining stock of approximately 500 ton will help reduce the overall cost for the 2019 and 20 season, and cost should be comparable or to or slightly lower than this season. Financial implications. Based on the results of the 2018-19, a total sand salt cost decrease of 19% or $10,175 was experienced over the previous year. Overall, we have reduced the purchase of these products from a high of $95,800 in 2007 and 8 to an average over the last 3 seasons of $42,700. The all-time low of only $14,800 was recorded in the 2009 and 10 season. This report is presented for council's information only.
Thank you very much for that. Any questions of Ms. Treshka on that report? Councillor Gingras.
So I'm just questioning decrease. So is that because we didn't need it on as many days as before, or we've just kind of learned more when to use the sand and the salt?
It's a combination of both.
Okay.
The new sander is highly efficient. Salt is much more expensive than sand, and we didn't have enough warm days where we could apply salt. There were many more, as you can see from the chart. We applied sand much more often than we applied salt. So that's always cheaper, but not good for weather, I guess.
Councillor Lake.
Yeah, as through another season, the roads were excellently maintained. It's especially when you go out of town, it's amazing how safe our roads are during the winter season. My question would be this: so if Environment Canada says salt is a toxin, and I get that it has negative impacts on the environment, are there any other viable options now or coming down the road that we can start looking at, or is salt really the only product for the price that does the job that it does?
Well, that's, your last comment is probably the one that accurately describes it. There are other products, beet juice, brine is used by some municipalities, but they need round-the-clock shifts because you have to react to brine. You can't just put it down and then go home at the end of the day. You're reacting all day long. There's a few communities that tried beet juice and found it not really as effective, but it was much more environmentally friendly. So for a small community that wants instant reaction and reducing the bare pavement, salt is still the best product.
Anything else? Good. Thank you for that report. Up next, we have a report on 2019 tax ratios. Good evening, Mr. Rubel.
Evening, Mayor and Council. Section 308 of the Municipal Act requires single-tiered municipalities to pass a bylaw each year to establish the tax ratios for the taxation year. Section 313 prescribes tax reductions for vacant and excess land in the commercial and industrial classes. Tax ratios establish the relative tax burden for each property class. Council has the authority to adopt alternative ratios as long as they fall within the provincial ranges of fairness. For multi-residential class, it's 1.0 to 1.1. All others is 0.08 to 1.1. Since all our ratios fall outside the ranges of fairness, we can only move closer towards these ranges. The province has provided another option in utilizing revenue-neutral transaction ratios to mitigate tax shifts amongst the classes because of reassessment. To be revenue neutral in the large industrial class, the ratio would have to be 2.763567, but the legislation has limited the tax ratio for industrial class to 2.63. If we went to revenue neutral, the commercial tax class would have to incur most of the tax shift. Administration is proposing no changes to the tax ratios. So as always, residential is 1. Multi-res will stay at 1.1. Commercial and the shopping center classes will stay at 1.25. Parking lot and vacant commercial will be 1.1. Landfill, 1.1. Industrial class, 2.25. And the large industrial will be 2.63. Another consideration is the effect of tax ratios on future economic development. Any potential business looking at investing in the town of Marathon will be analyzing the municipal property tax environment. A high tax ratio could be viewed as a negative aspect. To illustrate the effect of tax ratios, assume a house and a business are both assessed to be worth $100,000. If the tax rate for the residential class is 3%, the homeowner would pay $3,000 in municipal property taxes. The business owner would pay $3,750. With the overhaul of property assessment in 1998, the province recognized that not all properties classified in the commercial and industrial property classes were being occupied to the same extent, so it codified 2 subclasses. Vacant land is property that has no accessible improvements or buildings. Excess land is a property that has not been improved and it is in excess of the amount of land required to support the improved portions of the land. So for example, the former mill site would be a good one where you have the mill site but you have so much forest and so forth. They deemed some of that property to be excess to the needs of producing pulp. The Ministry of Finance prescribes tax rate reduction percentages of 30% for the commercial properties and 35% for industrial properties. 2017, province granted flexibilities to municipalities to alter the reduction program by altering the discount outside the 30 to 35% range or to even eliminate them. The reduction for vacant commercial properties was eliminated as the town of Marathon has the optional class of parking lots / vacant, but excess commercial properties still receive a 30% reduction and vacant and excess industrial properties are given a 35% reduction. Changing ratios do not generate more tax revenue, it just shifts the tax burden amongst the classes. Increasing the ratios, though, will expose revenue to a higher risk of tax write-off if the property owners are successful. So the options are to adopt bylaw 1952 and approve the tax ratios as presented or adopt the bylaw with amendments. Administration is recommending that option A be selected, establishing the ratios as detailed in bylaw 1952.
Great, thank you for that report. I do have a motion here, Council hereby accepts the attached report and recommendation on 2019 tax ratios and further that the appropriate bylaw be adopted later this evening, establishing the ratios to confirm property classes and B, to set tax rate reductions for prescribed property subclasses for the town of Marathon 2019 taxation year. Moved by Councilor Gingra, second by Councilor Lake. Questions? Councilor Valence.
Mr. Verbo, can you just give more clarification as to increasing the tax ratios will expose revenue to a higher risk of tax write-offs? That's the businesses, correct?
Correct. So what was happening is industrial properties were getting less and less assessments. Municipalities were still chasing that money, and so every year they would ratchet up the ratio higher and higher. And then once MPAC did decide to reduce the assessment and it was lost at the assessment review board, more money was having to be given back. So all that attempt to maintain the status quo on the taxes amongst the classes was all for nothing.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else?
So Your Worship, just a point of clarification to Mr. Verbo's point. If you remember back, where one community that really got stung by this was Dryden and the Domtar situation that they had there, where it resulted in $8+ million that had to be repaid because they changed the ratios to that point. So there are some real-world examples that we do not want to follow.
So I do have a question in regards to large industrial. As we know, way back in the day, Marathon used to have a 5.6 ratio compared to 1 for residential and multi-res for industrial. We then became into the range of fairness because the school tax system was a little differently at that time. We did go down to 2.25 at one point. Now we're back up to 2.63. The range of revenue neutral is 2.76.
Right.
Why would we not go to that 2.76?
Because we'd have to be revenue neutral for all the classes. So
Right.
to maintain, to have the large industrials pay the 2.7 ratio, the
Right.
commercial class, so your Biloxi.
Yeah, you would automatically have to jump them up?
Everybody,
Okay.
so the ratio for, if you look at the graph, for commercial would have
Yeah.
to go from 2.25 to 2.66. I know it doesn't look much,
No,
but
no,
it's still, the commercial
an
class
impact.
would have to accept most of that.
So why I'm utilizing the industrial one, as we know, we are coming into a new assessment cycle that's gonna take place in 2020 that will impact the municipality, so hopefully that we can have a great opportunity to discuss with Impact any potential differences in the assessed value of our industrial sites, because that's key for us. As we know, with the mill going down, we lost over $1 million annually, so that 10 years is $10 million that we don't have in the coffers of the municipality to utilize for our operations. So this will also be one of those concerns we must be aware of. Okay? Thank you for that report. Call the question. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Okay, up next, we have a report on 2019 budget excluded expenses. Mr. Verbo.
Ontario Regulation 284/09 requires municipalities to report to council when certain expenses are excluded from the budget. The province of Ontario requires municipalities to acknowledge awareness during the budget process of inclusion and exclusion of certain expenses. The expenses are allowed to be excluded from the annual budget with the provision that a resolution be adopted stating if and how these expenses are included in the annual budget. The report is to contain the estimated impact of the overall accumulated surplus of such transactions. The regulation refers to amortization, post-employment benefits, and solid waste landfill closures and post-closure costs. For the town of Marathon, the budget process looks at revenues, expenses, capital purchases, debt financing, and transfers to and from reserves. The term estimates of all sums required, which is in the Municipal Act, means that the municipality does not generate more income that is needed, nor does it allow for not generating enough income. The net is, at the bottom, it is zero. Amortization is the acknowledgement that capital assets are used up over their lifetime. Provincial regulation states that the assets are to be amortized using the straight line method. For example, a $100,000 asset with the expected life of 10 years would result in an annual amortization expense of $10,000. Since amortization is not a cash outlay, it's not included in the annual budget approval, but the purchase of the asset is. I've detailed the last 4 years of capital acquisitions amortization. So in 2018, we purchased $111,000 more than we amortized. It was not the case in 2017, where amortization was $735,000 more than what we spent on capital. It was almost a wash in 2016, and in 2015, when we developed the new landfill on Camp 19, we spent $5 million in capital, and amortization was $1.5 million. The goal is always to be positive so that the assets are being replaced ahead of being used up. For the town of Marathon, the budgeting process does not account for amortization, but to avoid significant variances to budget when analyzing the annual financial statements, the auditor adjusts the budget by adding the actual amortization expense as the budgeted amortization expense. Post-employment benefits, the town doesn't have any. The town Marathon, the current expense of monitoring the closed landfill at Penn Lake Road is recognized. Similar to amortization, the budget process does not recognize the post-closure expenses that will be incurred in operating landfills today. So in 2018, the Closure liability actually decreased $26,000 because the capacity of the Camp 19 landfill was increased. In 2017, the utilization percentage was 13%, but the following year it was shown to only be 9%. The auditor included this change by reducing environmental expenses by $26,000. The amount of capital spending in 2019 is $1.836 million. Amortization in 2018 was $1.617 million. The 2019 budget has $32,000 for monitoring the Penn Lake landfill, but there's nothing recognized in the increased liability of operating the Camp 19 landfill. There is no reserve established to fund the closure, which is expected to be in 2140. Administration requests that council accepts the exclusion of amortization, post-employment benefit expenses, and landfill closure expenses from the 2019 budget.
Thank you for the report. Do you have a motion? Council hereby accept the attached report and recommendation on 2019 budget excluded expenses, and further that the council accepts the exclusion and amortization of post-employment benefit expenses and landfill closure expenses from the 2019 budget process. Moved by Councilor Lake, second by Councilor Valence. Any questions? Councilor Lake.
So when we come to budget time, you're very good at always telling us that you can't just defer capital because things break down and eventually you'll end up in a big giant hole. Administration is very good at telling us that because we're always trying to stay on budget. Is this the number that we should probably be looking at in terms of whole health of the municipality, that you want to have that kind of near zero or just a positive number of capital versus amortization?
Zero is not good. You want to be higher than that. And the province, through the Ministry of Municipal Affairs, does have indicators, and they look at these numbers. This was all a little bit of history. This was all brought in 2009 for PSAB, is when we had to start recognizing capital assets, and this was one of the things. And so again, they look at the your amount of your assets, and how much amortization and how much is used up, and then that's a general picture on whether we're old or whether we're fairly new, and then they also monitor the trends to see whether we're putting more money to reinvesting in our infrastructure so we don't get below the 50% mark.
Councilor?
Through the chair, I'm trying to remember, there was a PSAB report card that we got. All the municipalities got it. Was that based on these numbers?
Yes.
Okay, and so we were good for the area,
Yes.
but not good by Southern Ontario standards, is what I recall.
No,
No,
I think we
we're
were
good.
good. We were good, yeah.
We're actually in the low risk.
Yeah,
Okay.
very low.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
think there was one other community that beat us, and that was Shunya.
Oh, because they don't
But
have
they
any
don't have a
infrastructure.
whole lot of infrastructure, so
Okay.
the Marathon was in pretty good shape.
Yeah, and I appreciate administration has been very good at saying you can't just defer capital to make your budget look pretty.
Yeah.
You need to take care of the house, so that's good.
Councilor
Thank you.
Valence?
Mr. Verbo, just wondering what PSAB would stand for.
Public Sector Accounting Board. It's an organization falling under the Canadian Public Accounting Board, and it deals strictly for government agencies, the federal government, municipalities, provinces, school boards, non-for-profits.
Okay.
And we've been using that acronym since 2009, again, because PSAB has been a big change for anyways how municipal financing has been going for the last 10 years.
So it's so unique that the government of Ontario keeps a really good look and watch on municipalities, but really doesn't watch out for their own backyard. So it's something that they should take their own advice on sometimes. So whether it's the Liberals, PCs, or NDP government, it doesn't matter. It just, they don't, they continue to spend beyond their means, and they don't look out for their future capital asset and amortization of their equipment. So,
That's not a question for me, right?
no, no, you don't need to answer that one, your opinion there. That's good, thank you. Yeah. Just a little plug out there for our provincial government to be aware of some of the things they pass on to their children, which is us, to learn from those things. So with that being said, I'll call a question. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Thank you for that report. And up next, we have a report on the investment policy annual treasury report.
This is my last one.
Yes, sir.
Financial Policy 11 states that the treasurer shall provide an annual investment report that details the status of the current investment portfolio and transactions made since the last report. Investment report shall contain a statement about the performance of the investments, a statement by the treasurer as to whether or not, in his opinion, all investments were made in accordance to the policies and goals adopted by the municipality, and such other information that council may require or that in the opinion of the treasurer should be included. 2017 bank interest was $36,000. The interest rate was 1.3%. Term deposit interest was $40,000, and realized income in the one investment was $21,000. There were no purchases or redemptions made in 2017. Last fiscal year, in 2018, bank interest was increased to $67,000. More funds were diverted from TD Canada Trust to One Investment's high interest savings account. It pays 0.365% higher interest. Term deposit interest was $51,000, and the realized income in One Investment was $21,000. There were no purchases or redemptions made in 2018. As of December 31st, 2018, the book value of the investments in One Investment was $1.4 million. There was $2.9 million invested in term deposits and $3.4 million in various bank accounts. Investments were made in accordance to the town's investment policy. This is for your information only.
Good. Any questions to that? Hearing none. Thank you for that report. Okay. Up next, I have a motion here on the following check runs. Be paid in the amount of accounts payable, $830,634.90, and payroll in the amount of $144,020.90. Moved by Councillor Valens, second by Councillor Debuchy. Any questions of those check runs? Hearing none, call a question. All in favor? Good. Carried. Thank you. Under the bylaws, report of council. So Councillor Debuchy's report will be passed on to the next council meeting. Councillor Lake will give us an update on the DSAB board.
Thank you, Your Worship. Since the last meeting, I attended a DSAB board meeting in Thunder Bay. It was an interesting meeting in that I think it's a sign of kind of the uncertainty in politics right now. The DSAB was hit with a change from government from 100% administration funding from the province to 80-20 split, which obviously as a member municipality means some downward pressure towards the municipality. The board had a robust conversation about how to deal with the shortfall this year and in the coming years. Certainly there will be some efforts put forward. I think they're going to go to NOMA to talk about sort of the arbitrary nature of changing the funding agreements. So that's kind of from a municipal standpoint, all the small municipalities were very clear that the levy cannot go up, that there's no more money to be given. So that was made very clear to the board, and that's going to be a work in progress as funding is worked out. The other thing that pertained, I think, to small municipalities in particular, was a decision to, there's some chronic vacancies in affordable housing in Northwestern Ontario. Almost all of them exist in small municipalities. They don't, Thunder Bay is chronically doesn't have enough houses. Geraldton, Long Lac, Savant Lake are places where there is often long-term vacancies. So made the decision to allow places that have long-term vacancies to allow market rent to fill those spaces if it helps keep the buildings viable. Again, from the small municipalities, we stated that it's not like you're closing a building in Thunder Bay where there are other public housing options. For lots of municipalities, there is one choice. So if you start shuttering buildings because some of the units are unrentable, it has a greater effect. So the idea of using market rent to fill those while not palatable to everybody, at least allows those buildings to be viable in the small community, so I supported that motion.
Good. Any questions? So I have one, and obviously when you're discussing the 20-80 split in regards to only the administrative costs, so that's very, very important to make a value point there. So do you have a number what those dollars were for the administration costs on an annual basis for DSAP?
So they're crunching the numbers because
Okay.
it's not to every program as well.
Right,
So we're
okay.
gonna have a better idea at the next meeting, but
Okay.
it certainly is, in a $110 million budget, it's a
Substantial.
significant amount of money.
Yes, and NOMA's had to cancel their June meeting, so, because of various members' commitments, previous commitments, so they won't be meeting until July, so it will be discussed probably there. Okay, Councillor Jingara, thanks for that, Councillor Lake. Councillor Jingara, in regards to the library board.
So our last council meeting, we talked about the cuts to the Ontario Library Services North. So they have updated a little bit what those cuts, exactly what services will be cut and what will remain. So interlibrary loans will remain. They're going to be restarting June 1st. They will host the library's website, but they will no longer maintain it. So they used to have a tech that you could call and they'd do the updates and they'd do all of that. So now it'll be up to the public library staff to do that, which from my understanding, they have learned some of what to do and they're still working on learning all of the ins and outs of that. Jazzy, which is their software for checking books in and out, will remain. So the big things will still be there. There was a cut to some positions from Ontario Library Service North, so some of those experts in the role that really know our small libraries will no longer be employed by them. So there's definitely some big changes coming. So the library is very thankful that we did pass that bylaw last,
Okay.
or not the bylaw,
Motion.
but the motion last meeting. The youth program at the library had a fundraiser. They were selling flowers, bulbs. So they raised $700 through that program. And finally, the libraries received their funding for a summer student. So they'll be announcing programs shortly for that.
Good.
So,
Thank you. Any questions of Councillor Jingara on that, library? Okay, Mr. Krasinski?
Not necessarily a question, Your Worship, but along the same lines, I'm not sure if council's seen the note, but we did get a letter from the Premier of Ontario today, where they've made the decision to maintain the in-year cost-sharing adjustments for land ambulance, public health, and childcare services.
Right.
So those were going to be downloads on the municipalities, and they've deferred those. I'm sure they'll be in the 2020 budget year, but for 2019, they won't affect the levies.
Just a question on that. They made some reference to, in the letter, that municipalities should be looking for 4 cents on their dollar.
4%, yeah.
Yeah, 4 cents on their dollar savings. So are we anticipating or projecting a reduction in the transfer payments of 4% in the next fiscal year?
No, it's
we-
more larger centers.
Yeah,
that,
so I'm just reading the letter here, the $200 million committed to small and rural municipalities and will remain in place.
Right. The 4% they're asking larger municipalities and cities to look at is a reduction in their overall cost of 4%. So City of Thunder Bay has been asked to reduce their
4%.
administrative costs somehow, somewhere by 4%, that the impacts will be great from the province. So the money's gotta come somewhere. And as we're talking about this, as you look at, we said earlier that the provincial deficit is around 15 billion. The provincial debt is 347 billion, and a monthly interest charge of $1 billion. So regardless of who the government of the day is, something's gotta be done somewhere, somehow. So there's gonna be some pain and some suffering along the way, but we have to all realize we can't continue to have a debt like that that's gonna impact not only us, but our children and our grandchildren for, generations. So something has to give. What it is, nobody likes to change, and nobody likes cuts, but something's gotta give. You can't carry a debt like that and pay that kind of interest. Interest of $1 billion a month, that's a lot of programs and a lot of different impacts to our municipalities if we can get that debt under control and that deficit, so. All the power to whoever's in power in Toronto. We'll work with them, and we continue to need our dollars, but at the same time, we know there's some things are gonna come down the line. So, I do have a motion here now in regards to the bylaw. The bylaw number 1952 being a bylaw to set tax ratios, confirm property classes, and set the tax rate reductions for prescribed property subclasses for the town of Marathon for 2019 taxation year to be read a first and second time this 27th day of May 2019. So, I need a mover and seconder. Councilor Jingara, Councilor Lake, any questions? Hearing none, call question, all in favor? Carried, thank you. And of course, we have the third reading of that bylaw, that the bylaw number 1952 be read a third time, finally passed this 27th day of May 2019. Mover? Councilor Jingara, seconded by Councilor Valence. Any questions on that third reading? Hearing none, call question, all in favor? Carried, thank you. With council's permission, I would like to add on just under 15 additional council information in regards to the upcoming, because we won't have a meeting prior to the Thunder Bay District Municipal League meeting that's going to take place in June 8th in Dorian. I've also talked to administration briefly about bringing back the discussion at our council table about single-use plastic bags in our community, as well as opportunities. And NOMA's been working on this with the government, but is looking at through Stewardship Ontario, but also looking at deposits on plastic bottles and not just recyclable for bringing it back to depots, but actual deposits so that you will bring the bottle back to the source of purchase on pop bottles, milk jugs, water bottles. So we'll discuss that, but I'd like to have that put on our agenda for the next meeting, and Thunder Bay District Municipal League is going to be discussing as part of their agenda on the 8th. So just some food for thought out there, because I know that we did look at this this project, I want to say maybe 10 years ago, maybe a little longer, the municipality. If council remember, we discussed this, and we did try to look at implementing maybe a reduction or removal of plastic single-use bags, and I know one of our retailers did switch to brown paper bags for a while, so it was kind of an uptake, but it didn't really get any more traction after that because it was an election and council changed. So I'd just like to bring that back with council permission for discussion at our next council meeting. Councilor Lake.
And just wondering along that lines, I mean, there's been some decent research done by the Great Lakes Binational Forum, by Eco Superior. Would it be possible to get maybe an information session for council, somebody to come in to give a deputation from one of those expert groups, just to, like, there's really interesting stuff at the Dorian Bird Festival, believe it or not, about the effect of plastic bags on shorebirds in Lake Superior, so it'd be interesting to hear that.
We haven't heard from Eco Spirit for a long time, so it might be a good opportunity to bring them in, if they'd like. Yes, Councilor Valence.
Would we be able to open that info session up to the public or, say, the Chamber of Commerce to participate as well?
So if we were gonna do that, we'd have to have like a question and answer period is what you're looking for, so that may be prior to the council meeting, maybe a 6:30 to 7. We can probably do that. Then it'll be open to the public just for kind of information gathering. And it's just more for discussion, I think, than anything else right now, and then we'll go from there. Councilor Debussy?
So I'm just not quite sure. I think that if you're wanting a report from administration for next council, I think it's a little early until we get that deputation or that information needed from Eco Superior, Waste Diversion Ontario, or whatever like that. So if we can plan, or if we can give administration a heads up time to have those information sessions, they can garner some information from the Eco Superior, or whatever it may be, and then bring that report to council about single usage bags, if we support waste diversions or deposits on those things. And then through the NOMA, you can also work through their issues to see if we're gonna get support from other communities of moving those things forward, as opposed to us implementing a bag or ban and then having Eco Superior come with the information after.
Certainly, and I'm not asking for anything. I'm asking for this to get on the agenda, for the discussion to start to take place. And if that's part of the discussion, is to have Eco Superior come in and give a presentation, that's great. But the ball is starting to roll is what I'm asking for. It's just no report, no nothing, just the information to be gathered. We can start discussing this over the next several months and into the fall. Okay? Anybody else? Good? So with that being said, we do have a motion here to adjourn at the hour of, well, actually, prior to adjournment, there is the business awards that are coming up. We won't have another council meeting on June 8th as well. Want to give us a quick update and what's the information at, just to get reminder out to the public again?
For sure. So yes, the business awards are happening Saturday, June 8th at the Loyal Order of Moose. Tickets are $40 a piece, and they can be purchased at Spadoni Motors or Northwest Employment Works. We are on track to exceed last year's target. We've ordered some phenomenal canvases, have some awesome stuff for the auction, so we're super excited. The winners have been chosen, so
Good.
we're very excited to announce the 9 winners in the 9 categories. So if you need tickets, you can Facebook myself or stop in at New or Spadoni Motors. Thanks.
Great, thank you. And prior to adjournment, I just want to again want to thank both of our student counselors for the past year, for your input to our table. Thanks for that again. Okay, moved by Councillor Lake, second by Councillor Valens. We adjourn at the hour of 7:55 p.m. Thank you and have a good night.